if you've ever sat and looked at a blank page, either on a computer or on your notebook, and didn't know what to do, this video is for you. I want to talk about what causes writer's block and how to beat it, or at least ways that have worked for me to beat it. So number one, I want to say writer's block, I don't have to tell you this, writer's block is real. Certain intelligent writers with big names like John Carlton will tell you that writer's block doesn't exist. It's a myth. But in your reality, in most of our reality, it's true. And the fact that he even has to say that is kind of evidence that writer's block is a thing. There's just no reason to be stopped by it. So he's probably saying that to be over the top. That's his character. That's his personality. But truth of the matter is, writer's block is real. And I've found, maybe I don't know everything. Actually, I don't know everything. Pretty close. But writer's block is caused by two things. The first one seems like the obvious one, that you don't have any ideas. You're not sure what to say, not sure what to talk about. Or you don't know how to approach your topic in a unique way. And we're going to talk about how to deal with that in a second. The second thing that I found is fear. Fear is one of the things that really holds writers back and keeps them from being able to write even something that they know what they want to say, kind of know what they want to do, have an idea about it. Fear or anxiety can keep them from even starting, or once they start, it can really keep them from moving forward. So let's talk about how I've beaten and how I've advised other writers to beat writer's block. Number one, I can tell you from personal experience, anxiety or fear about writing. It's not like I'm scared to write, but it's oftentimes I know my first draft might be kind of weak. It might be kind of off base, and I'm embarrassed to think that somebody might see it. You have to remind yourself, nobody's watching you write your first draft. That's one thing I don't like about Google Docs, though. If someone thinks they're going to collaborate or sit and watch you write, I can't do that. So even when I have shared Google Docs with clients, I will not do my first draft, and a lot of my edits I don't do in that doc. I got to do it in a separate document or in Microsoft Word. I do more Google Docs these days. It's just how I've kind of transitioned. But I can't do it live in front of other people. I have a hard time with that. And just like if we sat down to write together, that's not not how I'm effective. I can write in front of you, but it makes me nervous, and I'm more comfortable. I'm going to give better effort or better product when I'm by myself. And so that might be true of you too. If you're anxious, thinking whoever was reading this, it's not going to live up to their expectations, or they're going to be disappointed when they see it. They're going to wonder why they paid me this big amount of money for this. That's a big one, I think. If we collect a check or we're expecting a check, we want to live up to some expectation of what we imagine the client expects. So how do you get over that? First of all, realize, again, nobody's watching you write the first draft. Most of the time, first drafts are not as strong as they could be. I was going to say they stink. That may be not true. But if your first draft does stink, that's okay. You can always make a second draft as long as you don't have a deadline tonight. So anyway, there's that. Second thing is really talk to the client and find out what they expect. Find out what they've seen, what they're using, and you can gauge what your final product is going to look like by the actual expectations, not some imagined expectation of what the client wants and what they expect, and where they'll think you're a crappy writer and they wish they hadn't given you any money if you don't reach some level. You can be very clear about that. So just talk with your client, find out more about what they actually expect, what they don't want to see, what they have tried before that didn't work. So there's that. And I don't know if I came up with a term, but I use it. What's called the ridiculous crap method. I've talked at length about this, but here I'll just say, if you don't know what to say, just write ridiculous crap. And if you know in advance it's going to be ridiculous and it's going to be crap, there's no need to be scared. All you got to do is I'm just going to write. Actually, I stole the idea from Brian Keith Boyles. And he said a lot of times when he's writing headlines, he just write something absurd and totally off base, or maybe the opposite of what he's trying to say. Like you want to say this is a money-making product. You'll say how you can never make money, doing X, Y, or Z. And then you might say why a teenager can't make money doing this. And if you write enough of those, you'll start to turn it into what you want to actually say. It gets you momentum. Momentum is a writer's best friend. At least that's how, from my experience. So that's how you deal with anxiety, or how I deal with anxiety. A couple of ideas. I want to move into talking about having no ideas. So the ridiculous crap method can help with that. Once you get in momentum, get in motion, you'll find that writing comes much easier. But primarily, if you're stuck on a blank page because you don't know what to write, what you have to do is research. The reason that you're sitting down and you don't know what to say is because you haven't done enough research in advance. You haven't spent enough time gathering ideas, seeing what else is out there, what's been done, what hasn't yet been done in that industry, and that's part of what's blocking you. So I advise you to do is, if you're stuck, you can go three ways. Number one, look at your customer, your ideal buyer. Do research on them. And by research, it's a whole nother topic, I guess. But define who they are. And if you know exactly who you're writing to, that eliminates a lot of the options that you're weighing that may be slowing you down. Do research as to what their dreams are, what their problems are, what their current likely situations are. So a lot of times writers will tell you, or teachers will tell you, you write to an avatar, and you should. If you know your perfect buyer his name is Tom, he's 37, and he's an industrial engineer, you know a lot of things about him, or you can find out a lot of things about him, and then you write directly to those needs. You kind of know some of the things. He's a Republican, or he's a Democrat, or he's independent. You write to those things, and as you're thinking through his pains, his problems, his desires, and his dreams, you will come up with ideas. And then you find where the gap is, what we haven't talked about, what other people haven't talked about. And it's a good idea to explore what other companies have promised and not delivered on, what they've tried that hasn't worked for them. And when you start to do those, you start to see different ways, different angles to approach your message, and that will get you moving in the right direction. You don't know what to say? Well, when you do this research, you'll learn what some things that you can say that either you haven't said before, or for me, a lot of times you just find an idea that jumps out at you. This is a big idea. This is an exciting concept. This is something that hasn't been said before, or this is something that's been said that's wrong. And that gives you a way to start. And once you feel confident about your idea, you can write. The second thing you can do is research into the product or the service. I just the other day I wrote some copy. I wasn't sure how to do it. It was in a sequence, an email series, and I wasn't sure how to deal with it. And I did some research on the customer, past customers. So it's product research, but looking into the past customers of the product, and found some great testimonials, and that gave me the idea for what to write about in that sequence. And so you can do the same thing, do product research and service research, and you can find out the history, the backstory, the why this is like that, why we haven't sold it before now, or whatever, various things about the product. You're not going to think, sometimes you think that you can think until it will come. I'm going to sit here and wait until an idea pops in my head. Or as the old timers might say, when inspiration, my muse strikes, right? But what you need to do is go do some research. And you'll a lot of times find it inside the product itself or the service. So the third thing is the creator of the product or the service. And that will, you can look into the backstory, the genesis story of the creator of the product. That might unearth some interesting angles for you to talk about, some motivating factors, some historical context that helps you write. You can talk about failures. Now, if you can find places where they failed, where the creator has failed, that shows you why the product is better. And it also, a lot of times, your competitors are not talking about this stuff. So it gives you a fresh angle to write about. You can talk about successes, of course, things that they've done that are amazing. And that will bring you an idea to start writing. And again, once you get into motion, once you get writing, you got to pay, 500 words in, 1,000 words in, depending on what you're writing. You'll really find yourself operating at a higher level. Because when you're starting them first little 2 mile an hour fits and starts, it's hard to get traction. Once you get going, the ideas come and you can pivot on the go. The fourth thing that I would say, which is kind of related to maybe two of the three research things, is current news or stories that are in the news that are related to your product, your service, your guru, or your audience. If it's something that affects the buyers, the would-be buyers, or the should-be buyers, you can use that as an angle to talk about. So, whatever. You've seen this before, but you highlight, presidential election as a reason why this story is important now, why this product is important now, why the service is important why this candidate is important now, right? An election or the Oscars. The Oscars just kind of it's award season, I think. I don't know. If you're selling something that somehow is related to that or can be inspired by that, then you use that, or whatever. If it's in the news, if it's trending on people's minds, use that as a springboard to get into an idea and stop being stuck with writer's block. So those are. I wish I could run down an overview of what I said. I didn't write it down. But those are a couple ways that you can get yourself started. Writer's block doesn't have to stop you. It shouldn't stop you. Now, once you've heard this, at the very least, you can do ridiculous junk, the ridiculous junk method of just typing something crazy. That might be also, I said I stole it from Brian Keith Voiles, but also Gary Halbert said the same thing. He would just type the same sentence or something crazy until something came to his mind. Because once your brain is moving, you can come up with stuff. So you can use the ridiculous crap method. Remind yourself that nobody's watching. Your first draft may not be great, and it won't hurt you to write one that's not great because you can always fix it. Get feedback in advance. That's not feedback then. Get information in advance from the client about what the expectation is, so you don't have to feel nervous about it. And you can also talk to other people, peers, or potential clients if you can get your hands on them. Don't put your hands on them. If you can get in touch with them and ask them questions, do surveys and find out the kind of stuff that they're pissed off about, the kind of stuff that they wish that products would have given them before, stuff like that. And getting that information in advance will help inform how you move forward. And then the research, once you're sitting down and you don't know what to say, you can do research on your ideal client or customer, on the product or service itself, on the creator of the product or service, the business behind it, and stuff in the news that will lend itself to speaking to your topic. And when you do those things, writer's block, it stumps you. Come to your senses. Remind yourself. You might have a sticky that says ridiculous junk. Just do it. And remind yourself to get out there and just get into motion. And you'll find that writer's block can't stop you for long. It'll be writer's bump, not writer's block. Just a little slowdown. So that's what I got for you today. I hope that it helps.